Hola, soy Vivi
Y yo, Merce.
y esto es Mysoreando,
Mysoreando. Aquí hablaremos sobre la práctica de ashtanga yoga tradicional.
desde nuestra propia experiencia.
¿Nos
¿Nos
acompaña?
acompañas? Hi, this is Vivian, and me and my friend Merce would like to welcome you to Mysoreando. This is a podcast that we started for the Spanish-speaking community of Ashtanga Yoga. We are two Ashtangis from Canary Islands, from Tenerife, and with a lot of fun and excitement started this podcast a couple of months ago because we realized there was not much content in Spanish. So, this is a special episode. We are starting our second season today, and given that we interviewed Harmony Slater, a certified Ashtanga yoga teacher, while she was visiting Tenerife, she was teaching a retreat and then teaching a workshop at the shala we both practice. So we got the chance to interview her, and of course, it was in English. So we thought it would be great that anyone who speaks English could access this record. It's a really nice and fun interview we've had, and it will be great for everyone to listen to it. We will, of course, translate it into Spanish for our community, for, for our listeners. But as a special treat, we will leave the whole interview also in English for everybody who speaks English to listen. So yes, we hope you enjoy the interview and thank you for listening. Now we go on to listen what Harmony has to tell us. Welcome to Mysoreando, Harmony.
Thank you for having me.
So, you are a very experienced Ashtanga yoga practitioner and teacher. You've been practicing and teaching for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And so you're certified by Batavillois.
Yes.
And
I was actually certified by Sharat Joyce.
by Sharat, okay.
Yeah.
And so we would like to hear about your experience in this practice, since you started so many years ago, and it must have evolved so much from the beginning till now.
Yeah.
Also, like the approach, because it's been, I don't know how many years since you started until now. Your life has changed completely, like it does.
Yes, definitely.
And also the approach in teaching, because this also changed with time and experience.
Yeah. I think when I started, I was 20 years old. It was 1999. And that's when I really dove into the practice of yoga and doing it like pretty regularly in my everyday life. But at that time, we didn't have any Mysore shalas or Mysore programs or anything like that. And there was no authorized or certified teachers in my city. So I would have to travel, or teachers would come and do workshops. But Mysore was sort of something that was a special kind of situation. But in our little yoga community at the time, I grew up in Calgary, Canada. So that's where I was when I started learning yoga. We did have a lot of the very kind of original teachers coming. So David Williams came and taught a workshop. Lucy Motorella came and taught a workshop. Nancy Gilgoff. So a lot of these teachers who live in Hawaii, because we had a big group of students that would go to Hawaii and practice. And so we had a relationship with these teachers, David Swenson. And so we learned kind of the old school method of Ashtanga yoga. There was a few little things that were added in here and there, and, maybe some handstands or splits or different types of, additional things that people were doing at the time and practicing. And so I ended up going to Mysore for the first time in 2004, and Pattabhi Jois had just moved out of Lakshmipuram to the new Shala in 2003. So it was the first year that he was in that new Shala. And it was still a pretty small group of students that were there practicing. There was really like 50 of us maximum at one time. And so it was a beautiful room with not that many people in it, lots of space between the mats. And it was the first year that he introduced doing a lead intermediate series class. And so that was how I kind of started doing intermediate series. I practiced it a little bit at home on my own, but I'd never really learned from a teacher or from a class. I'd practiced a little bit in a Mysore setting with some guest teachers who had sort of showed me the postures and taught them to me. But when I went to the lead intermediate series class after being in Mysore for a month and a half, I think, or maybe 2 months at that time, that was sort of my first time being led through those postures. And that was at that time, which is still, I think, how it is today, basically how most of the postures get given in intermediate series in Mysore. So Sharat sort of gave me the first few postures of intermediate series. And then when I was at Dhanurasana, I think it was, he invited me. He said, come to lead intermediate.
Oh, okay.
And so then that day I went from Dhanurasana all the way to Pinchamayurasana in one go.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I went home and was like crying and shaking, and like my nervous system was totally raw. Just I stayed inside and like curled up in a blanket for the whole day.
Wow.
Because it was a lot, and I think when you're in Mysore practicing, you're already kind of very open and it's very intense.
Yeah.
And at that time, you can imagine there was only maybe 15 people in the lead intermediate series class. It was 2 rows with like a lot of space between people. Yeah. And so there's a lot of attention on what you were doing. And then, it was really intense. And also at that time, there was a lot of, very senior teachers there. It was around Pattabhi Jois's birthday, his 89th birthday. And so Richard Freeman was there, and Mary Taylor, and David Swenson, and Tim Miller, and I think John Scott was there. There was like so many like very senior teachers. It was sort of like the ashtanga yoga celebrities were all out in masses. So I loved my first trip to India. It was, it just felt like home to me, and so magical and amazing. And I just fell in love with the place, and it was all like hot season. And so it was, during those months, less students, even maybe 30 of us, one batch closing in the shala. It was amazing. And so after I left after 4 months, and or maybe 4 and a bit, I forget. And then I just wanted to go back, of course. So at that time, I had met a teacher who was a senior authorized teacher at the time, who owned a retreat center in Thailand. And we had become friends, and he was looking for somebody to come and kind of be a substitute teacher for him when he was in Mysore. So to manage the retreat center, but also teach the students that were coming, and to help him with some teacher trainings, and just sort of be a secondary teacher. And so he invited me to come to Thailand and live there and teach and run the retreat center. And so that was an amazing offer. I just turned 25 at the time, and I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. So then that sort of created a journey of me living in Southeast Asia, going between Thailand and India for like the next 5 years.
Wow.
Back and forth between those places. I lived at that retreat center. I lived in Mysore. And then I spent a season at Purple Valley Retreat Center in Goa, living in Goa. And then also traveling through India when I wasn't practicing, because back then Pattabhi Jois would go on tour, and tours were not very pre-planned. Like, it was sort of like you would sign up to go to Mysore for 3 months, and then you'd be there in your second month, and they were like, oh, we're going on tour next month. And you're like, what? Like,
There was no website.
there's not really, right? No one's really, they're just like, we're going on tour, bye. And you're like, oh, well, I'm still here in India. What should I do now?
Yeah.
So in a way, it was kind of a blessing because we traveled a lot. So I traveled to all different areas of India, started sitting 10-day Vipassana retreats in India, like dove into all these other practices, and also like getting the full cultural infusion of being in India, which is incredible.
Sounds great.
Yeah. It's like if you leave the Mysore bubble, it's an amazing experience. So to me, that is the real India. It's like outside of the Mysore bubble, you know, outside of that small little city, which is actually quite a big city compared to most cities in the world. But for India, it's not so big. Like going to the Himalayas, going to the jungle, going to these ashrams that are crazy. Yeah, amazing. So that really made me fall in love with India. And I just kept going back again and again up until, I guess I took a break because I got pregnant with my son. And so I was on like a pretty good trajectory, although there was these years that we call the desert years, which basically were from when I arrived, 2005, 2006 to like when Pattabhi Jois died in 2009. Was it?
I think so.
2008, I think. I don't know. I forget now.
We check it. we Google it.
I have to think. 7, 8. No, it was maybe 9.
I think it's 9.
9?
Yeah.
I believe it's 9. Always go with your first guess and answer. It's like instinct. Yeah. Yes, it was 2009 for sure. I remember now, 2009. So the next year, because that was the first year that Sharat offered a teacher training. And the teacher training was a 1-month teacher training, and it happened right after Pattabhi Jois died. And when Pattabhi Jois passed away, I went to Mysore for his funeral. So I should remember what year it was. And then after his funeral, went up into the Himalayas to do the Char Dham, to go to the 4 holy spots of Badrinath, Kedarnath, Gomukh, or the mouth of the Ganges River, and then the Yamuna River, traveling and going to all these different holy spots. And then I didn't go to that teacher training, but I went to the one the following year and was pregnant when I went to that one in 2010. And then I took a break from going to Mysore because I had my son, and went back after he was almost 2. So we wanted to get the free flights, of course. So you have to go before your child turns 2 years old. So I think he was like,
1.5.
yeah, he was like just over 1.5 years old. And then we went back, and that was like a whole very different experience. But then I went back year after year with him. So he ended up spending a lot of time in Mysore, growing up there until he was about 5 years old. And at that time, I'd been practicing maybe a third of third series before I got pregnant. And then, of course, when you get pregnant, you give birth, your practice totally changes.
Yeah.
and then it totally disappears. And then you're like building it back up from from primary series onward. And so I'd kind of built it back up to the end of intermediate. I hadn't really been doing a lot of advanced series. But of course, when I went back to Mysore, I was keen to get back into it. And so started building it back up into advanced series again. And then I think maybe that year I got like one posture or something. Sharad's very sensitive to women coming back from pregnancy. He doesn't want them to do too much too soon, which is great advice. So he, was like, just take it slow. It's okay. There's no rush. And I came back the next year and the next year and the next year and slowly finished advanced series after that. And then he certified me in 2016. 15, 16? I don't know. 15 maybe. Yeah. 8 years ago. So was that 2015? 2015. Yeah. Thank you. So then I finished third series, and it had been 11 years of going to Mysore regularly. And then I came back 2016 again for another 3 months, and then in 2017 for a month, and then I haven't been back since then because it was all of a sudden.
Yeah, I remember seeing you. My first trip was your last trip.
Yeah, 2016 or 17? 17,
I went
in January. Yeah. So that was a nice trip. That was fun. Going into 4 series. Yeah, I had done some of the 4 series postures, but got a couple more that trip, and then and then went on tour with Sharat that year, and then the next year in 2 years later in 2019 did like the whole tour with him, and was very involved in that process, which was fun kind of and stressful in other ways. And then it was 2020, and so then the world changed. I changed, the world changed, everything changed. So yeah.
And now, after all this, what has happened, pandemic, you say your life changed, you changed. How do you approach the practice now? Because it's much different when you're 25.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like my practice was really, really strong in my early 20s. I was very, light and flexible and strong and able to pretty much do everything. And this period of time where not many postures were being given out, I finished intermediate series on my first trip to Mysore, and then it was like not much progress over the next like 5 years. It was really, you were getting one posture a trip, and that was true pretty much for almost everyone. Nobody was really getting a lot of postures. There was a lot of infighting in the Mysore room between Guruji and Sharat and Saraswati, who were all in the room teaching together at the same time, yelling at each other from across the room. So that was always a fun and interesting experience. I always feel a little bit like I should have been like going further, faster when I was younger and stronger and more flexible with more energy. But when I was pregnant, it really changed, and I dove much more into my pranayama and meditation practice, which I had been, growing since the beginning of my practice days, practicing pranayama daily, practicing meditation daily, and the pranayama practice I had been learning was from the Kavalyadam Institute in Lonavala, India, with my teacher Sri O.P. Tiwari, who was a different guru than Patabi Joyce. So I was always one of those naughty students that had 2 teachers. But I didn't find it conflicting at all. And then after giving birth and building my practice back up, I actually felt stronger and probably got much more stronger and much more flexible than I'd ever been. my body had changed quite a bit through pregnancy. So I wasn't like, 100 pounds like I was at the beginning, but, I was still really flexible, really strong, really like one-pointed in my focus towards the asana practice, but still continued with the pranayama and the meditation practice, but really like decided to make the asana my focus because I wanted to finish third series really badly. And as you know, when you're kind of hungry for postures and hungry for asana, it takes up like an hour and a half, 2 hours minimum of your time every day when you're really working on something. So that was like my commitment. And I had a yoga school at that time, so I was teaching also, but I would teach for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, then I'd practice for 2.5 hours, then I'd teach again for an hour, and then I'd go be mom for an afternoon, evening, all night, and then get up early and do the whole thing again. And so I think my practice really expanded and progressed physically at that time, for sure. And then after 2017, 2016, I split up with my then partner. So went through a divorce over 2016 to 2017. And then also we sold our yoga school and I started traveling and teaching all the time. And so I was traveling for about 2 weeks out of every month, which kind of kills your physical practice of asana because your body just, for me anyway, I'm not super naturally flexible or bendy. My body gets stiff really fast. I seem to hold a lot of heat, which creates a lot of inflammation. It's probably my pitta dosha. So all the traveling really kind of like slowly my advanced series was disappearing. And then I was like intermediate and primary series. and then COVID happened and it was slowly intermediate series started disappearing. Not right away, but definitely over the 3 years, it just became, my body was really, I think, tired and feeling heavy, and the weight of just the pandemic and the situation, and not really feeling very inspired. I also, basically created an entire online business where I have a membership now that's all online, and a pranayama course that I teach online. And then doing a lot of workshops and things online, especially at that time. I feel, and then started a podcast also, the Finding Harmony podcast. So all of this was just like, I was at my computer so much, so much, that I think it really drains a lot of your energy, and it's hard to, you're tired at the end of the day.
It's like the body needs to move more, but there is no energy because you've been sitting all day, and the body gets kind of like
stiff and heavy,
and stuck, and then when you are about to move, it's like everything hurts, so there's no joy anymore. I think many people felt that during the pandemic. We couldn't go out.
Exactly.
So we couldn't move. Like here in Spain, you couldn't even go for a walk. You had to stay home. I got a back injury from just sitting all day in the office, and from the office to the living room. And even though I was doing my practice every day, it was like the only thing that was keeping me like kind of sane. But I think many people experience that the practice and life got like kind of like thrown away, no?
And your mind is also like heavy and busy, and Zoom fatigue is real.
And you just want everything to be over.
Including life itself.
Let me wake up, this was all a nightmare.
I said at first we were working from home, and now we're living in our office. just felt like you'd get up and work and go to work all night, have dinner, work some more, go to bed.
Yes, and it lasts a lot.
It was so long. Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like it never ended.
Yeah. So then I think now my approach to practice is much more gentle. I mean, honestly, it can take me like a half hour, 45 minutes to just do sun salutations because I really like take my time.
Yeah.
And I wait for my body to really like feel good and warm. And so I like it if I have a lot of hours to practice because then I can really like take my time and make it slow and juicy and like it's not feel rushed.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of what's changed the most out of everything is that for me, I can't just like do it really quick, like chop, 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 like lead primary series sounds like a disaster to me right now because I like to go slow. I can't like just push my body through it really quickly. I need to take my time.
You don't have energy for the rest of the day if you do it like that. That's what my experience is.
And honestly my body just won't allow for it. I can't really transition that quickly between like the forward folding and the backward bending anymore. I need to like go a little slow and give my spine some space to like adjust to those transitions. And same like with Chaturanga, like I don't want to just jump into Chaturanga because my shoulders don't like that shock, right? I want to go slow and set it up and do it with like correct sort of alignment and like make sure all my muscles and all my bones and all my joints are on board. Like, okay, we're doing Chaturanga now.
So it's much
Exhale.
more conscious.
Yes, we're doing upward dog now. Okay, we're going to make sure everything, like the feet are involved, the legs are involved, the upper back's involved, the stomach muscles are involved, right? Like everything needs to be in that position. So it's much more like mindful and conscious movement because I can't just like throw my body around into postures like I could when I was young.
We talk a lot in our podcast about how to create a practice that is sustainable, no? Because it makes no sense to just go through asanas if then we can like everything hurts, we're tired, we don't have energy for the rest. We try to do this practice to get better, not worse, to feel better, not worse.
Well, yeah, and there's times I know in my practice when I would really like push my body into certain asanas and then I could like barely walk for the rest of the day because my back was so sore. Or like my body felt like, just like exhausted and tired and pain, like just getting up and moving. It was like, oh, I felt like a 90-year-old woman. And I was 30.
Because when we're in Mysore, we are most of people who go to Mysore, they just practice and there's nothing else to do afterwards. But when we are home, we have a life and we have a job and we have family and things to do, and then I think we cannot take what we do in Mysore exactly as we do it in Mysore home. We have to adapt it into our life as close as possible, of course, but without injuring ourselves or getting crazy or letting go of the practice because
and you have to make allowances for the practice to be adaptable like you're saying, so that because the weight of carrying all of those things, the job, the family, aging parents, grandparents, organizing activities for your children, emails, cleaning the house, making food,
walking the
dog, feeding the dogs, picking up all the poop in the backyard, right? Like, I mean, there's like so many things. Cleaning, yes, right? So many things that even if you're not doing those activities, they sit in your head. Like, oh, right, I have 50 things to do today or this week.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not even looking at your to-do list just for your work or your job or for your shala or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that weight of the expectations or the thinking or the responsibilities shows up in your body.
Yes. Yes. And then if we push it even more.
Yeah, so you have to like be compassionate with the situation.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're on vacation. When you're in Mysore, you're on vacation.
Yes.
You know, I always used to say that, like, oh, I love my time in Mysore. It's like paradise.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just so good. I just want to stay here. And my partner would always say, well, you're on vacation. Of course you want to stay here.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to stay on vacation and practice yoga 7 hours a day?
Yeah.
Right? Of course. Yeah. It's supposed to feel good. It's supposed to feel like that.
Yeah.
But it's not life unless you have a trust fund, which
Yeah.
a lot of teachers do.
Happy. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Because I think that way of approaching the practice in a sustainable way also is very important when you teach it, no? Because now you're teaching from another perspective than when you were pushing yourself, right?
Yeah, totally. I think the more self-compassion you can create, the better it is for your students, but also understanding that, I mean, sometimes it's hard for yoga teachers if you only teach yoga and that's your whole life.
Yeah.
It's hard to really understand somebody who's coming in who has a full-time job and, 3 kids and a dog and a spouse and aging parents.
Yeah.
And you're
and back pain.
And back pain. Yeah, exactly. And tight hamstrings. Right?
Yeah.
You're like, well, but why can't you do this every day?
Yeah.
Right? Why don't you love yoga as much as I love yoga?
Yeah.
And like, it's going to get easier if you do it every day.
Yeah.
I mean, but, and maybe it's a woman and maybe she's perimenopausal, right?
Yeah.
Let's throw that in too.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't have the bandwidth for it. You don't have the energy or the internal resources to get you to your mat so consistently or for such long periods of time.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe you can do sun salutations. Maybe you have to do them at home a couple days a week and then do the last 3 closing postures and call that success.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. There is no, but like the practice is the practice whatever you do.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Totally.
I always tell my students, because I want my students to come every day, but not because I want them to do the full practice every day. I want them to know that they can come to the shala and do what they want to do.
Yeah.
I have one student, she comes and sometimes when she's very tired, she just lies down first and then she breathes a little bit and then maybe she does some sun salutation. I'm so proud of her.
Yeah.
Because I would not have done that when I was starting my practice.
Totally.
And that inspires me to like, hey, I get up every day and some days I just breathe and then that's practice.
It's your time to connect, no?
Yeah, it's the shala is the home, is your home. You come, you do what you want, like, or your mat is your home.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's so important to hold that space, that kind of like open, compassionate space, because like start in shavasana.
Yeah.
That's an experience.
Yeah.
When we were starting practice, first when you
we
woke
do
up,
shavasana
we do
first.
Shavasana, and I was like, that's what my student does. Not that it's really good.
Yeah. Because sometimes you just have to like relax in order to let your body,
arrive kind of.
It works. No?
Yeah, and then your parasympathetic nervous system.
I don't know if at 4:30 in the morning I'll fall asleep.
You set a little timer. Use the insight timer.
Snooze. I snooze.
Yes.
The little bell.
No, I really
10-minute
like that,
shavasana. You have your bell. Okay. Let me start now. But it helps because you can like generate that energy then too, because you're like allowing your body to rest. And then when you get up and you approach practice, it's a little bit more mindful and grounded, and it's coming from a place that's more rested and less like fight or flight. Yes, less rushed.
People tend to come in like rushed, like, oh, I'm late, oh, I'm late.
Yes, without think anything wrong, no? Like,
Yeah.
Wait a moment,
Wait,
stop,
breathe.
yes.
Arrive and then see.
And the stability, no?
Yeah.
I like too when you say, when you said the sama stitihi.
Yeah, I've never heard that either. I was like, I need to learn Sanskrit because it really makes a difference.
I knew it, but I didn't remember, no? And was like, oh yes.
Really nice.
It's such a beautiful posture, right? Because it is that equanimity and that sameness and that stillness and the stira or the stitihi, the attention, the steadiness, and it's like stepping into yourself and being attentive.
Yeah.
And I love like that samastitihi for like thinking about that, like each time you come to samastitihi, I'm here, right? Like just being present.
Yes.
And like, okay, equal breath, equal standing, equal mind, equal body. Okay, next thing.
Now the yoga begins.
I like to think of it like the wasabi of the practice, right? Like, okay, I mean, it is the vinyasa. And the same way the vinyasa is supposed to like clear the slate or like move the circulation through the body. Samastiti is the vinyasa of the standing postures. And so it's not moving. It's not like the upward dog, downward dog, sun salutations. But it is like a moment to
come back.
Keep coming back and to bring that balance back, which is also the point of the vinyasa, to bring the balance back to the body, right? You do something on one side and then you bring the balance back to the body through the vinyasa. You do it on the other side, you bring the body back to balance. And so it's the same. And I think you can take that same stillness, that same steadiness in samastiti and try to create that in your vinyasa too. Right? Like, okay, how can I make this as smooth as possible? How can I maintain that mind of stillness within the movement and that connection to the breath?
Wow. So in the workshop yesterday, you talked about the esoteric elements in yoga and the connection, the union from Shiva Shakti. I thought it was really beautiful. I think we all thought that. And we would really like you to explain that again for all our listeners.
Okay, I'll do my best. So we can start with like the ashtanga yoga, because the ashtanga yoga is the 8 limbs, right? Or the 8 what did we call it yesterday? The 8 tentacles.
The 8 tentacles from the octopus.
But so you have all of these different practices: the yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dana, dhyana, samadhi. And the first 4 limbs are the external practices, the things that we can do, right? The last 3 limbs, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, are the inner practices that are said to arise without our forcing, right? They arise spontaneously. The external yoga, the things that we do, the first 4 limbs, lays the foundation. The last 3 are Raja Yoga, or the royal path of yoga, the yoga of the king, right? Because the king sits in stillness on his throne and all the things come to him, right? And so the last 3 is the inner path that arises spontaneously, and it's the meditation, right? So we have the concentration, the meditation, and then the absorption. So it's the thing that you have to drop into. You have to let go to do that one. The other ones you can do with action. But the Raja Yoga, you have to not do. You have to stop doing in order for it to happen, like falling asleep, right? You can't make yourself or force yourself to fall asleep. There's nothing you can do.
We've all tried.
Yeah, to fall asleep, right? Yeah. Okay? Like sleep. Why am I not sleeping? Right? And samadhi is like the same thing. Yeah. There's nothing you can do to make samadhi happen. You can't think your way to it. You can't even like act your way to it. You have to stop doing. Just like sleep, you have to let go and drop into it. Samadhi, you have to let go to drop into it. The pratyahara is the sense withdrawal, the moving the attention inward. So every day our senses are going out into the world, which is why we're so exhausted. Because all of this concentration and meditation and energy is going out through our senses. So we're thinking and feeling and smelling and touching and tasting. And the mind is the sixth sense that is making sense of all of the other senses. And then pratyahara is turning all of that energy inward. So we're pulling the senses back in so that we're not tasting, touching, smelling, seeing. And then what happens is the mind can become very calm and still because it doesn't have to make sense of anything. It starts to return to its source, to its origin. And so the hatha yoga, the yoga of the sun and the moon, or the forceful yoga, the yoga of action, is the yamas, niyamas, the asana, the pranayama. And there's cleansing practices, which are called kriyas, and then mudras, which are basically a type of asana, a way of positioning the body using bandhas, so like the mula bandha, the uddiyana bandha, the jalandhara bandha, or placing your hands in particular places as well, with breath retentions. So those are mudras. And all of this hatha yoga is to lead to the Raja Yoga, is to lead to that experience of being able to drop in and experience absorption, which is a complete loss of your personality. So it's when you, as the practitioner, are so concentrated or focused on one point that you disappear. The thing you're concentrating on disappears, and you merge into one thing. So even the act of concentration, you just like get absorbed into it, right? So it all becomes one thing. That's the absorption.
Time disappears.
Time disappears. Completely time disappears. Yeah. Wow. Everything around you disappears. You're just absorbed. So that's where we're going. But our hatha yoga practices also come from a background of tantra yoga. And tantra yoga, even though when we say tantra yoga, everyone thinks like maybe sex, right? Or sexual, like, feeling and enjoying the senses. But tantra yoga is really a practice of being in doing things that involve the senses, but not getting attached to it. So, being able to, like one thing would be using Vajroli mudra from like a male perspective, right? Where they're engaged in intercourse, but instead of orgasming, they pull the orgasm back into their body. So yoga talks a lot about these different, kind of strange esoteric practices. But the idea is that there's these two polarities within us. And this shows up in all kind of aspects of Indian philosophy. But in Tantra, they call these two polarities Shiva and Shakti. And in Sankhya philosophy, it's more like Purusha and Prakriti. But it's basically the same concept, the same idea. And so even though the Yoga Sutras take its philosophy from Sankhya philosophy, so it talks about Purusha and Prakriti. So that's the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. It doesn't talk about Shiva Shakti. when you look at the Hatha Yoga texts, like the Hatha Pratipika or the Grantha Samhita or the Shiva Samhita, they put it more in terms of Shiva Shakti rather than Purusha Prakriti. And so Shiva is the pure consciousness. And this is maybe the masculine energy, the energy of awareness or presence. And it's said to sit at the crown of our head, the overseer, right? And so naturally, if I were to say, tune into your highest self, right? You kind of like go out of your body. You maybe start to like feel yourself expanding beyond the confines of your body or your mind, right? That's like the awareness, this overseer, this pure consciousness. We try to like move into that space, right? But we're also material. We're also like actual nature. Like we're made of atoms. We're made of carbon and minerals, and we have blood and water and tissues and excretions and all kinds of things going on in our bodies, right? We're taking food from the earth and eating it and making more earth in our body and excreting earth out of our body. And so we're very much a part of Prakriti, the material world. And Prakriti is Shakti. It's full of energy. It's full of movement. There's different types of Shakti. There's Shakti of the mind, you know, the energy that moves our thoughts. There's Shakti of the body, energy that moves our Shakti, or moves our body, moves our limbs. Even like Shakti of emotion. So Shakti is just, it means power. So it's what powers us, right? Invigorates us. And this idea is there's a very special type of Shakti or special type of power inside of us. That's the Kundalini Shakti. And the Kundalini Shakti is the beloved of Shiva. They're lovers. They want to join together. They want to meet each other. And I feel like this shows up in our longing, right? We long to step into our purpose. We long for enlightenment. We long for higher spiritual development or growth. And even if it's not showing up as spiritual development or growth, it shows up in our longing for other things like a promotion at work or a family, right? Or a partner or children or a dog. You know, we're longing for this relationship, for this connection, for this advancement. Yeah. And this is all an expression of this Shakti wanting to unite with Shiva. But Shakti is this special type of Kundalini Shakti is coiled up at the base of the spine like a sleeping serpent, it says. And so through these practices, yoga, pranayama, kriyas, mudra, we're starting to wake up this energy. And the energy starts to wake up, and not always, but hopefully it wakes up. It starts to wake up and things start to change within us, actually. And we want to move this energy up through the central column of the spine, all the way up to the crown of the head. And then we have absorption. Shiva means Shakti. The matter, the material aspect of ourself, this energy, this psychosomatic, spiritual energy that's inside of us all. We don't need to create it. We don't need to do anything actually at all to have it. It's there already.
It's there. You have to wake it up.
You just have to wake it up. Yeah. And it's even in like the, homeless person on the street. And it's even in like Donald Trump, and like it's even in Gandhi, and it's in everyone, right? It doesn't matter what level of sort of intellectual, spiritual evolution, you have this capacity. And so it's our duty as humans, as they would say in India.
Wake up the serpent.
To wake up the serpent. And so in India, snakes are like very auspicious, right? I mean, in Western cultures, we're like, Satan. but in India, snakes have a very different meaning. They're very auspicious, and they're, this, because snakes are also connected to the earth, right? And so they have, but they're also kind of mystical creatures, and you've seen the cobra, right?
Yeah.
They come up,
Yeah.
and they're super powerful.
Yeah.
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 And so it's this kind of imagery that India's tuned to, because they have lots of snakes, lots of cobras. And so it's that same idea that this energy is just like low to the ground. And if it doesn't wake up, it just stays there sleeping, dormant. It's fine. Next life. But if you start practicing yoga and you start tuning in to the movement of subtle energy in your body, you start maybe practicing a little pranayama, a little breathing, you start tuning your thoughts to higher things, your highest self. You start like trying to connect to that Shiva, right? To that Shiva consciousness or pure consciousness more through meditation, pranayama, asana. Then the cobra comes up. And it starts to rise, and our awareness starts to increase, and the two become one, and then you drop into samadhi.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yes.
And it has to be Shakti coming up. There is no other way for them to meet.
No, Shiva can't come
Shiva
down.
can't come down.
Shiva's too lazy.
The woman has to do the work.
The woman has to do the work, exactly. No, but it's pure consciousness, it doesn't move.
Yes.
It's just there. It's present all the time.
Yeah.
It's up to us. You need the power, you need the movement, you need the change, you need the prakriti, the shakti, the energy to move you there, to take you there, to reach it. Yeah. And so you need this, what is considered a more feminine energy.
Yeah.
And I think you see this dichotomy all the time, not to be sexist, but you see a couple on vacation and the man's like relaxing and the woman's working. You're like, what's this about?
Yeah.
But
Always doing a lot of things at the same time.
exactly. You have the family and the father's like chilling out on the couch and the woman's like doing all the things, cleaning and cooking and working. I mean, it's just sort of the nature of the two energies.
Yeah.
The masculine energy is like just kind of more, I guess, maybe able to be still and just like chill out.
Yeah, and focus on one thing at a time.
Yes.
But it's not like we criticize a lot of women and men that they cannot focus on more things than one. But I also think it's a really good quality. Like I sometimes wish I could just focus on one thing and finish that thing.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Whereas the feminine energy is more like
it's the mother, like
the mother, exactly.
5 kids and 5 things to do, no?
Managing everything.
Yeah.
And so really the yoga is like taking that's great power when you think about it. Like so much energy, so much power there in order to manage all of those things.
Yeah.
And so taking all of that and directing it is what helps you
To reach Shiva.
to reach Shiva. Because it's not just chilling out and hanging out. It's about using that focused energy in a concentrated way, in a one-pointed way, so that you disappear.
Yeah.
And then it's bliss, right? That's what samadhi is, bliss.
Yeah.
But the Yoga Sutras say a really beautiful thing, and I don't think this gets expressed enough. Pattabhi Jois used to say, you take practice, you thank God. All the time. I heard him say that more than anything. You take practice, you thank God. He was always saying, you thank God, you thank God. And people would ask ridiculous questions about like, well, what God should I think of? He's like, there's only one. Like, think of whatever one you want.
Yeah.
right? That's very Indian. Like all the deities, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's only Brahman.
Yeah.
That's it. One. And so when you think, the Yoga Sutras say, talking about Ishvara, that when Ishvara becomes or Ishvara Pranidhana, when Ishvara Pranidhana, which is like surrendering to a higher power or surrendering to the divine, surrendering to God, surrendering or bowing down before something greater than yourself. There's these types of translations, right? So basically a type of devotion, whether it's a devotion to your inner deity, your inner God, your inner Atman, or devotion to a higher deity, a higher God. But when you become firmly established in that, samadhi comes very quickly.
Yes.
And I think it's beautiful because you have to have that devotion in the yoga practice. You can't just do gymnastics. I mean, you can, but it's not yoga.
Yeah.
And you will get flexible and strong and bendy. But if there's not that Ishvara Pranidhana, if there's not that surrender to something greater than yourself,
Totally agree.
you won't reach alignment.
samadhi won't come. No, it will run away from you.
Yeah.
Yes, and you told us in the workshop, no, about the this Shakti energy.
Yeah.
Has different forms, or no, or
Yeah.
So, and can you explain this, but short,
Yeah.
no, but how in India, only for understand how this way to think of Indian, no?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
This is going to be
Sorry,
your
ladies.
longest podcast
We have to
ever.
translate it.
Yes.
We might do 2 parts maybe.
Yeah, part 1, part 2. Okay.
It's an hour more or less now.
Yeah.
That's all right.
okay.
You can release it next year.
But it's short answer. If you want.
Part 1, part 2, part 3. Yes, so the in India you have sort of this trinity of gods, right? Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, the creator, preserver, sustainer, the destroyer. And within these 3 gods, then you have the Devi, which is the goddess. And that's kind of like your sort of Cole's notes on Indian deities, right? You have these 3, which is the cycle of arising and passing away, arising and passing away. And then you have the goddess. And all of these deities, all of these sort of masculine or male sort of forms of consciousness have a Shakti, a goddess that gives them their power. Without the goddess, the god has no power. So they have to come together, which is kind of different than in Western, religion or mythology, where you have sort of a masculine deity or god, and where is the feminine? It's like alone, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in India, all of the gods have goddesses. They always show up in partnership. So again, you have this dichotomy happening, and also the union of 2. And it's a really beautiful thing in Sanskrit, actually. If you learn Sanskrit grammar, they have a singular case, a dual case, and a plural case. And so they have a special way of saying 2 together, which I think is such a representation of how important that partnership actually is there. Like culturally, it's a sacred union. The 2 become one. But it's always like in every aspect of life, the 2 become one, And so with the creator, or Brahma, the deity is the Saraswati, which is the goddess of the arts and literature and studying, the goddess of wisdom. And so you see all of that energy that to create new things comes from this goddess that, is all about creating beauty and being wise and learning and studying and growing. And then with the sustainer, Vishnu, or the preserver, the god who likes to create order out of chaos. You have his goddess is Lakshmi, which is the goddess of abundance and wealth and prosperity and good luck. Also beauty. They're all goddesses of beauty. But you see that in order to sustain something, you need wealth, you need good luck, you need good fortune, you need expansion, you need vision, and this is all Lakshmi. You know, she's brings all of this to help create order out of the chaos. And then with Shiva, his consort, I mean, he has sort of a consort that has incarnated a couple of times, but the main one is Parvati. And she is the maiden of the mountain. And she is his equal in yoga because Shiva is a great yogi. He's a great ascetic. And in order for Parvati to attract Shiva, because he was in a deep state of meditation, she also had to go into a deep state of meditation so that her energy or vibrations would start disturbing his deep state of meditation, so that he would come out of his deep state of meditation and start searching for her.
But where is that energy coming from?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this is how she attracts him, because she sees, oh, I can't, he's so into his meditation, I must become his equal in meditation. And so she does. And then he wakes up and goes, where's this energy coming from? And he sees her and is enchanted by her deep spiritual practice. Yeah. And of course then takes her. And so she is also a great yogi, but she is also like the Mother Earth, because she is the goddess of the mountain, or the maiden of the mountain. She's very much connected to the earth and Prakriti, to this earth energy. You know, harming the earth is like harming Parvati.
Yeah.
And so you need to take care of the earth so that you can take care of Parvati, respect Parvati. Otherwise, Shiva gets very angry, actually. And then from Parvati, also, we have Durga, which is a great warrior goddess who destroys all these crazy demons that are always trying to take over the world. There's, the Chamandi Hill in Mysore. There's the great story of Durga, who comes as a goddess to kill this demon. I forget his name.
Tells it often.
Often, yes. It's a very famous story of South India, but also just a famous mythology. And the reason why she comes, all the gods gather to create her, to create Durga. And so they manifest Durga, and they all give her weapons of their own. That's why she has so many arms holding so many weapons, like a sword and a mace and a discus and I think a mala maybe in one. I don't know. She has so many, right? Because all the gods give her powers so that she can be the most powerful goddess, deity out of anyone. She can be the fiercest warrior to overcome any demon. But many of these demons create contracts. They're great ascetics, they're great yogis actually, and they get so powerful that they call on Brahma to come, and Brahma comes and says, okay, what do you want? Like, they basically can ask for anything, any kind of boon or wish. And Brahma says, what do you want? And they say, make me so powerful, the ruler of the universe, so that no man can ever defeat me, no god can ever defeat me. And because they've done all of the right things, and in Indian philosophy, mythology, it's like math. If you add all the numbers together and you get a certain answer, well, then it's always that answer. So if you do all the right things and you get all the pieces in place, you can ask for anything and Brahma will give it to you. So Brahma says, fine, okay, you can have your wish. But then the gods, of course, this person gets super powerful, like Pablo Escobar, he gets so much money and power, and he starts to turn into an asura, a demon, and starts doing wicked things, and, treating people poorly and burning things and crazy. And so then the gods are like, oh no, what are we going to do? We have to destroy him, but he has so much power, we can't destroy him, right? Well, okay, so he said, no god, no man can destroy him. What about a woman? What about a goddess? Oh, he didn't put that in the contract. So they find all these loopholes, right? So this is how Durga is manifested because of a loophole. So she comes and is able to destroy him because she's a woman. She's a goddess.
Yeah.
He didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So yes, we have these warrior goddesses too, which are like super fierce energy. And it's just so beautiful because in India, the Devi is all of these things. She's the mother. She's the artist. She's the warrior. She's a lover. She's a sage. She's a great yogi. She's also a servant.
Yeah.
And she's all these things. And they don't even need to say like a different name.
Yeah.
It's just the Devi. And everyone recognizes that, oh, right, of course. Shakti is all of these things. Shakti is all of these different types of energy because Shakti is power. And the Devi is the power that keeps everything going, right? Keeps everything growing and creating and destroying and everything.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of beautiful that
So
way.
interesting, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
telling us because
This super girl power.
and we can apply to the practice and to our life, no? And
Totally.
so I
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's so important for, I mean, especially women, because most practitioners, I don't know, maybe 90% are women, I think. But it's so important for women to recognize that they can bring this awareness and this energy into all the things that they are doing, and that being a mother is your practice of yoga. And working your job in the office is your practice of yoga. And how you're showing up every day for your friends, your parents, your family, your partner, this is your practice of yoga. Making love is yoga. Cooking food is yoga. Cleaning the floors is yoga. As much as the asana practice is yoga. And that's like beautiful when you can start to tune your mind into creating that like connection and that awareness and a love. We were talking about the Gita today, but bringing that love and offering everything that you're doing as part of your practice, as part of your devotion, as part of your selfless service.
Yoga 24 hours.
Yeah. But it is true, I think, connecting to some of this imagery. It's easy to say, but how do you practically do it?
Now, when I struggle in the morning to start my practice, I say, now I have to wake up. Shakti, come on, we're going to meet.
That's right.
Yes,
I think it helps a lot.
Yeah, you have to like connect, maybe you lie in bed for like a few minutes. And just like, chant a Durga mantra or something, or just like think of Durga like on her tiger with all of her little arms and, like evoke that energy. It's
but
helpful.
It has sense, no?
It makes sense.
Makes sense for me.
And you can get on your mat and like be Parvati. I am going to draw Shiva to me with my with my devotion and energy.
It's the only way to get Shiva to come to you.
It's true.
You have to get in a very deep state of meditation.
Yes, you have to learn about maybe these qualities, no? To understand the energy, and you can after apply for your whatever you need in the moment, no? Something like that.
So if people want to learn more from you,
Yeah.
where can they find you?
They can find me on my website, harmonyslater.com, or they can find me on Instagram, Harmony Slater Official. And you can,
Your podcast?
my podcast, Finding Harmony Podcast, and I have like a free 2-minute breath work exercise, like pranayama exercise. It's an audio. You can download that and on my website, and like take little 2-minute breaks throughout your day of just tuning into your breath and
Waking up Shakti.
Waking up Shakti. Go
Keep
in.
waking her up.
Yeah, exactly.
And are you teaching? Because now, well, we are here in Tenerife.
Yes.
And
We're
recording
here in Tenerife.
after a workshop. And so you were just in Purple Valley in Tenerife.
Yeah.
And now,
Come back to Tenerife in 2024.
and
You
now
can
from
come to
here-
Ashtanga Yoga Tenerife or Mysore Tenerife and practice. I'm here. I have a retreat in Turkey that I do every year. I might be in Norway next year. I'll actually be back in Spain. I don't know when this is going to be released, but I'll be in Madrid and also Barcelona in September.
Are you coming to Sharat's?
I will be missing Sharat's tour. I will be coming afterwards. But yeah. So come to Spain in September. You can catch Sharat and me.
Yes. See? How good is that?
2 for 1. You can vacation in the middle.
You can have like a big event, and then you can have
a very intimate, small, in-depth,
personalized.
Yes.
Yeah.
With a lot of philosophy.
Yes.
So that's this year, September 2023. I'll be in Madrid and Barcelona.
Nice.
Yeah.
You've been in Europe a lot.
Yeah, I like Europe.
So
I seem to come to Spain quite a bit.
we definitely recommend to
workshops.
Yes.
With Harmony.
Yes.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much
Thank you
for
so
sharing.
much.
Yes. The knowledge.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being the first English guest invited on your podcast.
Certificate.
And our first certified teacher.
Oh, and the first. 2 firsts. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, check. I feel very lucky. Thank you.
We are the lucky ones, definitely. Yes.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por escucharnos.
Este es tu podcast semanal de Ashtanga Yoga.
La próxima semana seguimos
Mysoreando.
Mysoreando.
Yoga, Chitta, Vritti, Nirodha.
Honestidad, devoción, no violencia, desapego.
Yoga es 24 horas.
India, Mysore, Gokulam.
Inhala, exhala.
Respira.
Krishna Macharya, Patavi Joyce, Sharachi.
Parampara.
Respiración, Drishti, Bandas.
Practica y todo llegará.
Ashtanga Yoga.
Sapta jump in the air.